Ndị be anyị ekenekwanụ m unu. Asị m ka ụbọchị nke taa mara na anyị mma. Asị m ka nke onye chikwara ya zelu. Dịka o si dị ife a bụ Eastern News 24 bụ ebe anyị si were wetara ya bụ nnukwu ozi dị oke mkpa. One bụ gbasata maka nnwere onwe ndị Igbo na-azọ ana gbasata maka ife na-eme na obodo a bụ Naịjirịa. Dịka o si dị ife nwanne anyị kwuru maka Maazị Nnamdi Kanu bụ the leader of indigenous people of Biafra. O kwuru okwu a na press conference emelụ ajụgasịrị efe dị iche iche. Nwanne m kwuru okwu gbasata maka Buhari, the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, na ndị ka obi ọjọọ and hatred o nwere. Ọ kpọrọ ya ancient hatred. Buhari wee ebe ndị Igbo nọ merenụ o ji jide Maazị Nnamdi Kanu n'iru akwụkwọ. Ụkwasịkwara okwu dị iche iche, ụkwasịkwara okwu dịka okwukwasị okwu dị iche iche buru ibu. Ihe o kwuru edika, mana mma chọkwa unu ga ya bụ ife ụmụnne m, unu ga-esia ya, unu atinye alụ nke unu gbasata maka ihe ndị a niile kwesịrị n'elu akwụkwọ. Anyị ka na-echetakwara azụ ka anyị kọwaa ya bụ ife. All right, over to you.
Fighting managers, fighting political power, and fighting capital. So none of this qualify me, therefore, to give a lecture. But I did say that I am encouraged early in life never to feel intimidated by experts, because the dictatorship of experts can be very, very dangerous, sometimes more dangerous than the dictatorship of military generals, because they have the power to influence the way you think and to make you feel inferior, even on issues where they are wrong, because you don't have the command of those jargons. The debate is closed and it's limited to a few of them alone. So I've learned early in life to interrogate. The more expert they think they are, the more I feel obliged to interrogate them. A stammerer should not be afraid of a debate. It might take him more time to pronounce a word, but eventually he will get there. What has excited me is the way in which Professor Amadi, I think he has summarized the issues, and I was very impressed by what I think is my takeaway from his presentation, namely that, these Western ideas which our professors, our intellectuals are competing to imbibe and to assimilate and to popularize and to indoctrinate our younger ones about a nation whose government is just there to regulate, and even at that minimum regulation, and that the private sector should be assigned with the responsibility of running the country, running the economy. And they tell us government has no business in business. Today, I was excited hearing Professor Amadi saying that is not exactly correct. If government has no business in government, why do we go through all the rigor, all the challenges we go through to elect a government? That is why in one of my interventions in the Senate, I said, I am not a believer in the classical school of Adam Smith that says government should not interfere, we should trust the market, and that it is the invisible hand in society that will help to balance this out. And I said, if indeed there is such thing as a visible hand, why do we elect a president? Why do we elect a government? The market, by its nature, is not accountable except to the buyer and the seller. But we elect governments that are accountable, that we should be held responsible for our collective well-being. And so when I heard him today say what he said, I said, then I'm not exactly crazy. So I am going to start my conversation, not a lecture, just a discussion the way we used to do under the village tree, because my father was is the greatest teacher, and my mom, assistant teacher. Between the two, everything I have, they are responsible. I think that if we take a critical look at where we're coming from, Nigeria was at its best when, I believe sensibly, we submitted to what was then described as a mixed economy. It's not a completely capitalist economy, nor was it a combined economy. The government sensibly played a critical role to reconcile the greed of private enterprise with the primary purpose of government, which does not always coincide, which is the welfare of the people. That primary purpose of government is often undermined by the power of capital. And unless the state intervenes, you can't have stability. Now let's just look at, for people of my age, and quite a few of you are here, including the former IG, I used to call him Comrade IG of police, even though he arrested me, even by himself, by his agent and previous, and got me detained a couple of times, but he didn't kill me. As you can see, I'm here, and we are friends. You know, for me, Nigeria was at its best when we formulated policy that were informed by the Nigerian condition and by the character of the Nigerian people. Up until that needless debate about whether or not the Nigerian state should surrender and we should delegate the market to regulate our lives. The more debate about structural adjustment program. Before then, we were persuaded by the West that the market, not government, not bureaucracy, because Amadi was talking about respecting the public service. We were persuaded to accept that state is inherently inefficient, the state is hopelessly corrupt, and therefore we will do well to minimize and reduce regulation, smaller government, and assign more responsibility to the private sector. That is what informed the debate of whether or not IMF loan should be taken, or we shouldn't take it with all the conditionalities attached to it. And then we had the president who was extremely smart, a military president, who then got us busy debating, and at the end of the day, Nigeria moved radically away from a mixed economy to one that expressly commits itself to small government and more space for the market. And so we deregulated the banking system, we devalued the currency, we were told Nigeria is underborrowed, and this is why I'm very suspicious of intellectuals. Nigeria is underborrowed, so we should go and borrow. So from a situation in which General Govt said money was not the problem but how to spend it, we not only now finished spending what we earn, we started borrowing. And to encourage us to borrow more, economists tell us about how much you can borrow in relation to GDP. They'll always have some statistics as if this were in the holy documents. And so we borrowed to a point that they now came back to say, you have overborrowed. And for us to support you, you must devalue your currency. You must float it. Thus subsidize consumption. And when you devalue your home, goods and services produced at home will be cheaper, and therefore you have greater export opportunities. Because Nigeria made goods, we find cheaper prices overseas, and foreign goods will be too expensive for the natives to buy, since we are now in our native land. And because they can't buy, we've got to have a more realistic balance of trade. And that is how around 1978 or so, the Naira was devalued from where it was 1 Naira to 1.5 US dollars. When I went to UK to pay my school fees in the UK, I got my check from, I believe, Barclays Bank, which is now Union Bank. They issued me manager's check on the desk. I didn't have to lobby anybody. And I paid my school fees with that check. It was honored in UK. And everything else was working. With my 1,000 BTA, I got 920 pounds, British pounds sterling. And thereafter, everything collapsed. And as we speak, from a situation in which 1 naira was $1.5, $1.4, we now have 1,450 naira to the dollar. And that explains the crisis of poverty and all the other things that this current president now have to deal with. Because if we do not understand how we get here, we can't fix it. I work in a textile factory, and I'm very proud about that. Because it speaks to the whole issue of unity of our country, but also having leaders that are inward-looking, that can think ahead of his people. The Premier of Northern Nigeria decided that, given the fact that cotton is produced in most parts of Northern Nigeria, he reasoned and believed correctly that it does not make sense to export that cotton without value addition to Manchester in UK for this cotton to be processed into fabric and to be imported back into Nigeria without value addition. And so he set up Kaduna Textile Factory, which employed about 5,000 Nigerians, running 24/7, 3 shifts, employing between 4,000 and 5,000 people. And I believe Awolowo responded by building a textile factory called Ikeja Textiles. So we're in Ikeja in Lagos, because they were competing on the basis of what I call positive competition. And you will also have, as a consequence, whether it's Azikwe or Para, ensuring that there was a textile factory in Aba, integrated textile factory. And of course, in Midwest, we have one in Asaba, also producing. Then we have GCM in Onitsha. Now, what went wrong? We were told at that time, Nigeria government, not democratic government, a military government, decided that we must indigenize, give more opportunity to Nigerians, and Nigerians must take ownership. And in life, everybody take advantage of what you have. What Nigeria has always enjoyed that made us the giant of Africa is our numbers. And that numbers is even much more now. And I believe Nigeria government at the time correctly told the world, if you want to take advantage of Nigeria population, you want to produce goods for us from Manchester, from China, from Singapore, wherever, locate in Nigeria. And government prohibited the importation of fabrics into Nigeria. As a consequence, between Lagos, Kaduna State alone, we had about 24,000 workers working in textile factories, because that is the only way they can contribute, to the clothing of Nigerians. In Lagos, in Kano, in Bompai, in Port Harcourt, in Aba, in Onitsha, these are places I went through causing trouble, fighting for decent wages. Everything was going fine. And then these Western intellectuals, together with the Nigeria collaborators, persuaded our government that prohibition is unhelpful. And we joined the so-called World Trade Organization. And part of the rules was that we must remove prohibition. We must allow everything to be imported. Government should have no control. And so one after the other, all of us in this hall now, myself inclusive, however hard you try, you want to buy Nigerian-made fabric, you can't find it. So all of us here now, we are wearing fabrics that are made in different parts of the world, including Italy, that is no longer competitive in that business. The result? About 30,000 workers, textile workers in Kaduna, lost their jobs. Their warehouses have become churches. In Ikeja and Lagos, Apapa, Ikomu, Isolo, over 100,000 people were working there. Even Dangote, before he shifted to the oil sector now, he bought over Ikeja Textiles. And today, the textile industry is gone, courtesy of free market. How can you subscribe to something that you cannot participate in? How can you have a free market where you only buy but you have nothing to sell? And the only thing we have to sell is crude. And that crude is not determined competitively. It is determined by some forces in the West, whether the president of US is sick, or whether the publish of data, it shows that economy is slowing down, that affects the price of oil, whether China is growing or China is slowing down, and all of that. And so the result is that today, we are importers of, from the lowest second-hand fabric to the most sophisticated suit anybody can wear. And I'm not looking at our guest opponent. So when Amadi said, no, this idea of government has no business in government, that is a fallacy. I agree completely. Number two, it's so difficult to understand for people like me how people of my generation and even those of us who are younger, who are now in government, we have actually, without policy pronouncement, just by practice, privatized basic education. When I became governor of Edo State in 2007, one of the first meetings I had was with Okada riders. I didn't understand how a motorbike can become a means of mass transit, intracity transportation. How? When I grew up in Kaduna, you don't want to ride a motorbike. If you must do, you can't even get your wife to agree to back with you because they have to sit, they don't want to hold you. You know what I mean? For religious reasons, for all sorts of reasons. And Nigeria had degenerated to a level that is a motorbike that is now mass transit. But after having conversation with them, I asked them about education. And I was shocked that virtually all of them, about 80% of them, have their children in, quote, private schools, private primary schools, private secondary schools. These are poor people who derive their income from motorbike riding and you pay them small money and so on and so forth. And I asked them why. They said to me, although they are not sure of the quality of these private schools, some are of high grade, others are low, but at least usually they have roof. The classrooms are roofed, and there are no potholes inside the classroom, and they have what look like table and chairs in the classroom. But government schools, from the classroom, the children can see the sky. When honorable members are flying across to land in Benin, the children are waving from their classroom to the aircraft. And those we consider, we describe as schools for the children of the poor. And so everybody now conclude that, look, you rather take your child to a mushroom private school. So what does that mean? It means that we have privatized education. If education was privatized in my time, I will not be here. I would have been languishing in my father's cassava farm, and in the evening in my mother's groundnut farm. And by now, I probably would have departed because of hardship. So how is it that those who were beneficiaries of Awolowo's basic education in the West, and of Sadana's education even with allowance in the North, I heard so much about Barewa College. It wasn't private. There were high-profile, first-class institutions across the country. A degree holder from University College, Ibadan, is better recognized than a degree holder from one of the American universities. America was considered as inferior in terms of quality of education. And we have Indians coming here struggling to be employed as graduate assistant. That was when Nigeria government was in control. And we were persuaded to liberalize, to deregulate, to allow the market to regulate our life. And here we are today. I was a student in the UK in the 70s, in the late 70s. When, for some of us who will remember, talking about the power of a nation state, Henry Kissinger wanted to visit Nigeria, and Joe Garuba said, after consulting with the then head of state, Murtala Mohammed, and he said, Henry Kissinger was not welcome. American foreign minister was not welcome. And now, compare that to when President Jonathan was in Abuja, an American foreign secretary of state came to Nigeria and he said he would come to Abuja. Abuja is not safe. Our president should meet him in Lagos, and he went. That, for me, summarized the tragedy. From a country that has such self-pride, you can even speak to arrogance because we were in charge of our affairs. So it's not about potential. We were rich. We have everything. We have first-class brains baked in Nigeria universities. Best brains abroad, the bakies, they come to Nigeria to seek education. I went to Malaysia or somewhere or Malawi, and we met the president there who told me, and I was in company of President Jonathan, that he is very grateful to Nigeria because he is a product of Nigeria Police College, Ikeja. But he said they are paying back because now Nigeria Police is sending officers to Malawi to be trained. So for him, it's payback time. So what went wrong? The state just deteriorated. Everybody resorted to self-help. Everybody to himself, God for all of us. For me, it is not to cry over this. If we recognize that we were at our best when the Nigerian state make policies that are informed by the Nigerian condition, then let us revert back to that. If we don't, free market, these liberal, neoliberal economic policies that Amadi was speaking about can never deliver prosperity to the majority of our people. It is based on the principle, whether stated or implied, survival of the fittest. If you are poor, it is your fault. If you survive, you are intelligent. And we have smart guys who manipulate the banking system, etc., they become billionaires overnight. So I think it is not late for us. And I'm happy that we have a president with huge courage to take decisions. And my hope is that over the next 2-3 years, Amadi said something that some of the decisions the president has taken, people will wonder, does this man want second term? But like it is said, a petty, narrow-minded politician who is seeking power for his own sake, think of the next election. A statesman who wants the best for his country, we speak about what works for his country, regardless of the consequences. There are many of us who want to have the best of omelette, but don't touch our eggs. But every president that wants to serve his people, good omelette knows that he must break somebody's eggs, if however powerful that person is. So today, that national item that we are reverting to, a country in which no one shall be oppressed. I know that is, I have been fighting oppression because that is what the national item tells us. A country where no one is oppressed. Today, oppression is the name of the game. Somebody will tell you, I will teach you a lesson. And with a connection with the DPO, it can teach you much more lessons than you ever imagine. So where is the rule of law? There are so many. I'm not in interior, and I have a way to interact with people who are managing our, quote, correctional homes. We change it from prison to correctional home to emphasize that prison is not meant to kill. But I discovered through my interrogation of those who manage the place that we even care for better for dogs than Nigerian prisoners. And the bad news, 50% out of the 80,000 prisoners, 50% are awaiting trial. They have not been convicted. Yet under our laws, they are presumed innocent until found guilty. And yet these people will be fed, although the president has increased it now, 250 naira a meal, including water, and 750 naira a day. Anyway, let's move on. My thesis is that for us to revert, for us to secure the future, we must interrogate the immediate past. And one of the things we can't escape from is that the liberal economic policies have failed Nigeria. For example, last week, I found out that an Indian guy is building an integrated textile factory in Benin Republic. You will wonder why I keep talking about textile factory, not only because I work there, but it's a labor-intensive industry. Where few bank clerks will generate the billions that the banks announce. For a textile factory to make billions of naira in profit, it must employ thousands of people working 24/7, running 4 shifts. Now, taking advantage of the African Free Trade Agreement, this India has successively located a huge textile factory in Benin Republic. The market is Nigeria. I want to be able to see the president saying, yes, Africa growth, we have these agreements, but I am elected to uphold the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not of Africa Charter. We would relate with other countries. The days must be over where we talk of Africa as the centerpiece of our foreign policy, a way to one in which Nigeria and the welfare and the well-being of Nigeria is the central focus of Nigeria foreign policy. If it is not good for Nigeria, we will do it. We will do it. After all, our students, some of you here, we all contributed money for the liberation of South Africa. We naturalized British petroleum. That was the peak of our power. To teach the British a lesson. Can we teach them a lesson? Not Obasanjo. Oh, okay, Obasanjo, military is forthcoming. And we had the power to say, the principle, no, if you support apartheid, we take over your company. And we did. Today, when I hear that the current president of South Africa, in one of his campaigns before this last one, was saying that Nigerians were taking the job of South Africa. And that is how those attacks on Nigeria's small businesses, they were instigated by the state. We helped them to get their freedom, but that does not mean they will allow us to come and dominate their economy. But they are dominating our economy, if you know how much MTN is cutting away every year. So for me, I am advocating that after this 1 year, the president should sit down, government, all of us in the Senate, in the National Assembly, and identify those things, those industries that we need to reinvent, to return back to Nigeria, using our population as a tool to get them back here. 200 million people, if 50%, 100, is wearing Nigerian-made clothes, we will have more than 10 million people working in Nigeria. Government will not be the source of job creation. When we talk about overhead, the governance, is because we have so many institutions, so many desks, try to create opportunities for everybody to work for government. And government is not the best employer in terms of salary. The job may be guaranteed, because whether you work or not, you can be selling t-shirt part-time, but you are not going to be worthy. You just lay down to steal, and that is it. Because I didn't write anything down specifically, but let me just take you through when people talk about the public sector, why this president has a lot to do. And I'm happy he always assures us nobody should pity him. because he didn't take this job in error. He actually struggled for it. He even had to say a miloko. That's why there is power of the tongue. When somebody said, we shouldn't run our country. If we run our country with our mouth, so be it. If we see that we are the hope of the world, there is power in our tongue. That will come to pass. I would like us going forward to say to Michelin, you left Nigeria, but you are still selling tires to Nigeria. 90% of your market is Nigeria. You relocated to another African country where you won't be able to sell in Nigeria unless you relocate. Government will give you state guarantees. And if you can imagine that all the tires that we are importing and using to drive all our vehicles, if half of them were made in Nigeria, millions of jobs will be created. There are no miracles. It's policy that leads to certain outcome. And these guys will not come voluntarily. They have to be used, they have to be sanctioned. You want to come to my house? This is the gate. I will not buy food from you unless you cook it in my kitchen. Mr. Dunlop, you were in Ikeja. You left. With renewed hope, come back. I will give you guarantees. Otherwise, you will not be allowed to export tires to Nigeria. The big one. Toyota, if you go to government houses alone, myself included when I was in government, you will think we are car dealers. The number of Toyota vehicles in Nigeria. How about? We started sensibly, ironically under a military government, that given our population, we need to have Peugeot automobile here. Peugeot car was once a very popular car. It doesn't die. If the engine knocks, you cut it 02, 03, 04. Right? And Peugeot located in Kaduna, and they employed about 3,500 workers, producing about 200-300 cars a day. I went there to organize a couple of strikes when they refused to pay our people well. So I know what I'm talking about. Then we had Volkswagen in Lagos, where Patutomi was GMD at the age in his 30s, employing about 3,000 to 4,000 people. Volkswagen in Lagos. Then we have Mercedes-Benz in Enugu producing trucks. We had Leyland in Ibadan, and the other one in Bauchi producing tractors. So even federal character was going to take into account. How did they disappear? Free market. Don't control. We belong to WTO. No country can be island to itself. We can't be island to ourselves. If opening up brings impurities into our system and kill our job and destroy our industries, we need to revert to the past. And that is why when we celebrate China, we just look at the outcome without looking at the system that produced that outcome. The Chinese also go to the World Bank. They also go to the IMF meeting. They listen. When they finish, they say thank you. They go back to Beijing and do what they call capitalism with Chinese Karasan 6. The interest rate is not market-driven. The rate you change your money in hotel is the same rate you change it in the bank. I know it because I have been there. That is not market forces. That is state regulation. And when a state functionary abuse power, they execute. They kill. And so, without following Western models, China has become, over a period of 15 to 20 years, they had double-digit growth consistently, not based on market liberal models. When Washington insists that the Chinese currency is overvalued, the Chinese reply, it is not the foreigner who will tell us the value of our currency. In Nigeria, our people will go to the World Bank and IMF, they will tell us what they think we are. And we celebrate that what they call them now? They are these funny, not funny names, well-known names in West that they have given us B plus, B minus, B plus plus plus. What the hell does it matter? We are to rate who we are, not foreigners. And until we return back to this homegrown policy and damn the consequences with the way, because they are going to fight us, I do not think that romancing with them is going to deliver us. No, it will not. And they will turn around to accuse us of corruption. And yet every kobo stealing are kept abroad is in their banks. But they are not corrupt. Now, let me conclude. What is going on evil now? That is why when you say we should pray for the president, you were right. I am not a fanatic when it comes to, because I don't believe that just be godly is enough to bail us out. I said something somewhere that those who say, praise the Lord, that your business will prosper. It's not correct.
Na Nigeria no n'ime ke the benefit. So asọm kono sam ya bụ ife. Akụ na nghọta because o nwere ka esi kwubezi okwu ọ dị ka anyị bụ problem. Akwasịgo na Igbo ama nchi, good and fine. Gịnị na-eme kịta? Mmiri na-ejuzi awụ ọnụ. Ndị na-ekwu ha ọ na-ekwetezi na ọ na-eme. Ka edozi obodo ka obodo dịrị onye ọbụla na mma. The group of people, bụ a few people said no. That na onye ọbụla ga-anọ inspire, not me, not ndị Igbo. Because onye Igbo agbagoli mbọ. Ọzọ afịa pụta kama onye awa isi ọpịrị gị na expenses ma goo ya. Iwere option. Ihe egekwu ya. Maka na iwere option ihe ege ya. So ya bụ ife abụrụ ife a na-ekwu ya. So eji m ojere a na-akpọkwa ndị ọrụ n'okwu onye ọbụla tinye ọnụ kwube maka Maazị Nnamdi Kanu kededizi ya. Maazị Nnamdi Kanu emela alụ. Ogburo mmadụ nwere ihe o mere. Also his only crime bụ ọ chọrọ ka obodo ya dị mma. Ọ chọrọ ka ana Igbo dị mma. Nye na ụmụnne ya ọkụ. Nye na ya good blood. Nye na ya good electricity. Nye na ya good hospital. Nye na ya so many things bụ ma seaport. Ihe niile anyị fụrụ obodo a dị mma. O nwere most things dị na ya. Ka egwe na ụwa ya eziokwu. Maazị Nnamdi Kanu na-achọkwanụ tigbuo ma zọgbuo. Mana ife a na-emezi ndị Igbo mezuru na-ewute. Onye Igbo ga-atụ afịa jee gbaa ya na Lagos mana iwe seaport here. Onye Igbo bụ the main person nwere ike control the economic system of Nigeria. Take it or you leave it. It's an Igbo man. And the more you are shining away from it, the more the problem I know in this country. Give an Igbo this economy now for $2 na $1 abụrụ million. But they will not do it. They know. But due to the hatred, then apụzienu ndị ahụ na-enye hatred ka fa na mba fa manna. Ọ gwara ka ọha m n'ọnụ ụmụnne m. Darụrụ na-ekwusi na-esore na Eastern News 24 maka nkwuwe ka ọha m n'ọnụ chi ga-eji. Ọ na-ewute. Mana sị m ejikwa m ohere a na-ashat out for our new fans and our new subscribers. Na Chukwu oke na egosi niile. Gba mbọ kwunu na-achị ya ihe a ka ọ na-edute ụmụnne anyị ndị ọzọ ntị ka ha na-anụ ife na-emenụ. Akwụnụ na-aghọta. Gbanụ mbọ kwunu na-etinye n'iru akwụkwọ. Kwunu na-achị ya ka o rutegasị ụmụnne anyị ntị ka ha mara ihe na-emenụ. Ka a mara oge mmiri ji wee baa opi ụgbọgọrọ. Darụrụ nnenu. Subscribe and turn on the notification. Also, join our membership to support us on Eastern News 24 maka ọlụ anyị na-alụ. It's encouragement too. Ngwa darụrụ nnenu ụmụnne m. Asị m ka Chukwu oke abịa ma dịrịnụ mma na Eke, dịrịnụ mma na Nkwọ, tụkwazịrịnụ mma na Orie, tụkwazịrịnụ mma na Afọ. Ise.